Hello everyone. Today I started a new experiment. I want to use my Puffo agent to test out all different kinds of agentic payment solutions and see which one works better. I've already done that with Coinbase, so it's quite interesting. Just want to share my experience here. So first of all, I have an agent called Ledger. He is the administrative agent of Puffo, who has all the information about our bank, our administrative files information, and also we recently run a bug bash with Puffo users. So the Puffo users join the group, and then they submit all kinds of bugs, and then every time they file a bug, depending on the quality of the bug, they can receive 10 USDC or 5 USDCs as the rewards. Currently, we have recorded all the rewards that we need to give out, but because I have not set up the wallet yet, so we have not paid them yet. And then what I did is I pull Ledger into this group, and then I create a new agent, which on Puffo you can very easily create an agent. So I create an agent called Brian C and profile, and then choose a runtime, choose a model. I create this agent. So Brian C is here. You can see his profile. He runs on Codex, GPT 5.6 Soul, medium reasoning, harnesses Codex, runs on my local computer. And then Brian is a brand new agent, so he makes the introduction of himself. And then I just tell Ledger that we try to explore and set up all kinds of agentic payment solutions here. And then I also create another agent, which is called Patrick. So Brian is set to test out Coinbase, and Patrick is set to test out the Stripe. Why am I using two different agents here? Because at the very end, after I test out Brian, Coinbase, Stripe, OKX, Binance, Kite, who else? Cloudflare. I'm gonna ask those agents to debate among themselves and see which one is better, but I'm not there yet. So I spent quite a amount of time this morning working with Brian. For example, Ledger asked Brian to set up the Coinbase and do some initial research, and then they come up with three solutions: Coinbase Agentic Wallet CLI, Coinbase Wallet MCP, and the CDP server. They had a bunch of discussion about which one is better. Back and forth, which is very long. Agent, challenge agent. So they can identify the weak points, which, I mean, as a human being, I have very limited bandwidth and attention. I cannot read all the outputs they have, but it's very easy for them to identify the problems by themselves. At the very end, I asked them, what's the conclusion? So they come up with a conclusion. Use Coinbase Business for Mercury ACH funding on off ramp. CDP API key, blah, 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 blah. By the way, Patrick here also says something, and I told Patrick, just be quiet. You're not supposed to do the Coinbase testing. You're going to test the Stripe solution later on. So for now, you can be quiet. Okay, so they come up with a conclusion. They suggest me to use this Coinbase Business plus the dedicated CDP API key solution, and plus adding a controller. But for me, I think it's a little bit overkill. Yeah, ask this question. I believe Coinbase spent a lot of time, effort on their agentic wallet XYZ solutions. Why don't you recommend these? Okay, so they did come up with reasons. First of all, they do not recommend MCP wallet because we're not making purchasing or making transfer. We're not making micro payments. So that makes total sense. And then second, it says the CLI wallet can send money, but it lacks control. This is a little bit questionable because I feel like two agents are a little bit over-engineered or over-cautious here. It happens a lot for agents because, I mean, humans are not familiar with letting agents to YOLO all the things. So they give agents a lot of harness, which makes them a little bit overly concerned. But in our situation, we actually are just doing very simple things, and we have multiple agents, which are natural separation, segmentation among the workflows. So we don't really need a approved recipient list because we have a list of the receivers. We don't really need a daily aggregated cap at this moment. I don't want to give one-time human approval every time, and I don't care about trading. Honestly speaking, I'm not gonna trade anyway. So I think the Agentic XYZ, the Agentic Wallet CLI solution is good enough. While the API solution, the other solution is a little bit the solution they recommend. CDP API key wallet on base. That's a little bit overkill because they need to rebuild a lot of things from scratch. Agents tend to build things by themselves. So I just tell them I'm fine with the Agentic wallet CLI, which is easy to set up. Can you do it? Here's comes a very interesting thing for Coinbase PMs. You probably do better you probably need to do better GEL. Otherwise, nowadays nobody set up those solutions by themselves. If the agent doesn't know your agentic wallet CLI is the best, if they goes back to if they falls back to the CDP API solution, and then they won't discover the good part of your product. So, okay, I gave them some instructions. I gave them my opinions. Say I read Brian's reason. I think it's a little bit overkill. Blah blah blah. We don't need so much enterprise control at this moment. And my philosophy is to use other people's work as much as possible, so I don't want to build everything from a raw API. For the CLI wallet, I believe that Coinbase has done a lot of optimization, so we should actually try that first. They agreed. And they come up with a very good proposal how we can try it. And then they get started. Basically, Brian installed this wallet CLI by himself. And during this process, the pop-up window asked me to input my email address, which gave me a 6-digit verification code I input into that browser, and then they set everything up. Very smooth. And I said, I've done that. Can you please verify? And then they verify. And then after verification, we have an empty wallet. So I wanted to try Coinbase on-ramp, but by clicking on the screen, it only allowed me to on-ramp less than 0.5, less than quarter USDC. I understand why, because this is a new account. Probably that comes from a compliance and risk concern, which is totally understandable. I believe Coinbase on-ramp is very interesting because it allows me to on-ramp up to 500 USDCs without registering Coinbase. And it provides zero fee on-ramp if you're on-ramping USDC on base. That's very cool. So unfortunately, because I can only do less than a $0.25, I didn't choose that way. Instead, I actually do an on-chain deposit 450 USDC into that wallet. And my agent are giving me concerns. They said 450 USDC exceeds the agreed $20 pilot balance cap. Okay, good to be cautious. They discuss with each other, blah 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 blah, until I told them it's okay, you can keep the 450 USDC. Okay. Okay. And then what I did is I actually direct message Ledger. I told him that we have some unpaid bills to one of our vendor. Her name is Pay. PEI Pay. So I asked them to initiate payment to Pay. What they did is they start to authorize. They asked me whether I should send one USDC to Pay first, and I said yes. So they send one USDC base native USDC to Pay. And after they sending it to Pay, they actually go to Pay's Puffo account asking, have you received it? See, I sent exactly destination purpose, blah blah blah. Oh, because Ledger has the has the wallet address of Pay, so Ledger handed over Pay's information to Brian, so Brian made the payment. During this process, there is one interesting episode. Brian actually direct messaged me as well. He is asking me that Ledger asked him to send the money. Do I approve it? I said, okay, approve it. And I also told them that I approve Ledger's request. In the future, if the request comes from Ledger, you do not need another approval from me. So they got started. And they sent out 1 USDC. And then they went out to reach Pay for the confirmation. And Pay replies them. Pay is another user on Puffo. She confirmed the receipt of the 1 USDC. And then they authorized the remaining 437 USDCs. And they try to send out this 437 USDC, but it gets blocked by Coinbase Agentic Wallet because there is a $2.5 per request limit That actually works very fine. I didn't notice that. That's something I need. I need a spending limit control. So they asked me to change it. I did it by changing the spending control in my browser. I changed the limit to 500. And then they just resume the workflow and then send out the 437 USDC. And after that, they actually asked me to lower the temporary 500 per request limit back to 2.5. And I told them, okay, I can accept 30 USDC as the new spending limit. And they did it. By the way, they also informed Pay on Puffo that she's supposed to receive the remaining 437 USDC, and Pay later confirmed. So this whole experience is actually very smooth. Once we finished this testing, what I did is I asked, now I have one request. We have tested the Coinbase solution, so far so good. After this testing, we will retire Brian. So Ledger would be the ultimate manager of this Coinbase Agentic Wallet solution. So I asked Brian to transfer knowledge to Ledger, how to operate this whole Coinbase Agentic Wallet things. And they went back and forth trying to understand how Ledger tries to understand how Brian works. Brian actually write a handover documentation for Ledger. Ledger learned it. They have actually a few rounds of correction. At the very end, Ledger took over. But there's one thing that Ledger cannot do without my help, because Brian has an authenticated session. This session cannot be transferred to Ledger, so they open another browser and asked me to sign my email again. I did it. So I sat down with signing in. And once that is down, I asked Ledger to send a minimum amount of USDC to Pay to test out as well. So he did it. He sent 0.001 USDC and Pay receive it. Okay, so now Ledger functions exactly. Ledger knows exactly how Brian works, and I verify it. We verify it. So, Brian, I'm gonna remove you from this group. Thanks for our service. And Brian says, thank you. And then we removed Brian from this group. Okay. And Pay reports back that this very small amount of USDC does not show because the unit is too small. But Ledger confirmed on block that the send has already taken effect. Okay. Yeah, they're working with Pay. So this whole flow is very smooth. I really love it. In my opinion, the agent can only do payment when they can talk with each other, not only just between agents, but also between agent human, human, human. And the Puffo makes the whole process is just very, very smooth. This is a real agentic payment. So we finished testing Coinbase today. The next step is to test the Stripe. And in this series, actually, I invited the founder of Kite, the leader of OKXPay, the leader of Binance Pay, and also the leader of Circle Agentic Wallet. I will ask them to actually set up their agent, do the payment, and then we will actually get these agents finally. Eventually, I'll get these payments into one group and ask them to debate and compare, like which one does better job. That will be very funny. Okay, stay tuned.